two new legendary quests to talk about in what will be our second to last Saviors of Uldum review. Quick update. I'm going to be heading to Blizzard HQ for the theory crafting live stream, playing the expansion early, trying out some crazy decks. That's Thursday, August 1st at 9 a.m. Pacific time on my Twitch stream. Come hang out, talk to me. I'll be giving away five $50 pre-order bundles as well, thanks to Blizzard. So a lot of cool stuff going on. I hope you'll join me. There are links basically everywhere to my Twitch stream, but also noteworthy, tomorrow will be the last review for Saviors of Uldum. All the cards are going to get revealed. I will basically be either in an airport or on an airplane, so stay tuned. That review might be a little later than you'd otherwise expect because I'll be traveling so much. But I'll get something out on the road regardless. It may not look exactly like this, but it's coming. So stay tuned, and thanks for your patience, and hopefully you'll come join me at that live stream. But that's not all we got.
Hey, buddy, watch this.
We still got to talk about these two cards. If you're short on time, you're probably mad because I just spent a minute talking to you. But hit the quick reviews link in the description. You know the deal by now. Otherwise, let's jump into some very heated and detailed discussion of these two legendary quests. So up first here, let's take a look at the Rogue quest, Bazaar Burglary. Pretty cool one, I think. You have to add 4 cards from another class to your hand to activate the quest, and then you get this hero power, which equips a really nice weapon, a 3/2 for only 2 mana that makes you immune while attacking. And we know from the past of Hearthstone, 3/2 weapons can be pretty good for 2 mana. Fiery War Axe was incredible. And this one's even better because you can take trades with immunity, the exact sort of thing Rogue often needs, because usually they're using these weapons to chip away at their opponent's minions, and they take so much damage that they die before they can do anything in the late game. A weapon like this would enable them to trade more safely, preserve some health, and perhaps play a more late game style than we've otherwise seen, while still keeping an opponent's board in check rather nicely. Odd Rogue upgraded hero power we saw in the past was a 2-mana 2/2, and that alone was so strong that it still empowers that deck today, even with all the craziness of Wild going on. That's such a good hero power that makes that deck stand alone as a tier 1 deck by itself. And this is an even better hero power than that by a significant margin. The same price, but higher attack, higher damage, and immunity. And this weapon can, of course, go face if you want to. You don't have to trade stuff just because it's immunity. So it can just be a really high-pressure weapon as well. So this could be in that late-game control-style rogue. This could be in a much faster, tempo-y Burgle rogue, because obviously you're going to need some Burgle support to activate this. So the question for this card becomes, is it easy to activate? And can you get this weapon in play fast enough? Because obviously with Odd Rogue, you get that weapon on turn 2, and that's what makes it so good. You're not going to be getting this weapon on turn 2. It's going to be hitting later in the game, say like turn 4, turn 5, maybe even like turn 7 sometimes, which will make it far less impactful. I'm sorry if I misled you there. Probably already furiously typing your comments. So that's the risk here, is that you won't get the quest done in time, and this weapon might come along a little bit too late. But I do think it's fairly easy still to achieve this quest. It's just adding 4 cards to your hand. You don't even have to play the cards. It's not like you're required to spend that mana in order to achieve your quest completion. You're doing things you want to be doing anyway, playing your Hinchland Burglars, your Blink Foxes. We've even got Pharaoh Cat now that could give you class cards other than your own occasionally. So essentially, a lot of ways to get this moving. It's maybe not going to happen on turn 3 or 4 consistently, but by turn 5 or 6, I think we'll see this more often than not completed. And then the weapon becomes this late game force, where it's either just a lot of damage output or just a lot of mid to late game board control influence. And I think that's still going to be decent. I mean, like top decking a Fiery War Axe was still a pretty good thing, even in the mid to late game, right? It was obviously great on turn 2, but still a relevant, important card later in the game as well, just as a cheap tool. And because you're not actually drawing this in your deck, it's even better. It's just kind of a free resource that's a 100% upside over your base weapon, and a significant upside at that. So yeah, I don't think there's a lot of risk in running a card like this, other than giving up your turn 1, as we always see with quests, and giving up a mulligan. So is this reward going to be enough for that? I think it still will be pretty powerful option in the late game. So Particularly some rogues will want this, others may not. It's not like a universally great card. It's not going to be 5 stars meta defining for the class or anything, but there are decks out there that have that burgle plan that will be able to utilize this successfully. Won't be too much downside. It'll be a fair bit of upside, so it does look like a solid playable card. So now let's take a look at Activate the Obelisk, the new priest quest. Of course, 1 mana legendary spell. The quest reads restore 15 health, and your reward is the Obelisk's Eye, which is a hero power for 2 mana that restores 3 health, and if you target a minion, you also give it +3/+3. So the idea here with this hero power is that it's just a blatant upgrade over your normal hero power. If you want, you can just use it to restore 3 health instead of 2. Even when healing your face, there's a small upside. But if you're able to use it on your minions, there is a much larger upside. Sometimes you'll be able to give that +3/+3 instant activation with a minion that's already able to attack, meaning it could be like extra damage like we see with buffs or magnetic minions in some cases. Other times, it might just be a passive thing that you buff a minion that you play in the same turn just to get some additional stats in play for 2 mana, increasing the size of your stuff on average. So, that's what the card does, and if you think the card is awesome, you should skip to the quick reviews, because otherwise, we're gonna have words. So, just to give you some context, I've already spent something like an hour talking about this card on Twitch with, like, I think we had 320 viewers or something, and we had some heated debates. Some people love this card, think it's 5 stars, gonna be nerfed, awesome, perfect quest for priest. Other people like me aren't quite sold yet. I can only really see one path towards success for this card, which really limits its scope, and I don't think it gets played in the way most people think. So a lot of people seem excited about this card as a tempo style card, or something that you play with early game minions, because the hero power looks great if you have minions on board and you can play this thing in the mid game. It's just a lot of extra pressure, stats on board, damage, and that's great for decks that are utilizing minions to create that sort of pressure. So people are envisioning a deck that runs low cost minions, you buff them, you attack, kind of almost like a zoo deck or maybe a mid-range deck in some ways, but one that is reliant on minions and pressure to achieve its goal. And I just don't think Activate the Obelisk is workable in that environment at all, because I think it's way, way harder to activate this quest than most people realize. 15 health is not an easy thing to get to, and they'll be like, well, we just forgot about Circle of Healing. No, we've talked about it a lot. I think the challenge is not doing 15 health in a vacuum. Like, yes, you've got Divine Hymns, you've got Circle of Healings, you've got, cheap face heals if you need them. The challenge is getting things that have taken that much damage. Things aren't just naturally going to be lingering around. And now you're going to say, well, Regis, you forgot about a Reborn. And I didn't. The problem with Reborn is most early to mid-game Reborn minions have low health totals. So even if those come back, and if your opponent doesn't kill the Reborn before you get a chance to heal it, there's still not that much health to be healed. And that's a challenge for early game minions in general. They just don't have high health totals. Things like Wild Pyromancer only deal 1 damage. So healing, 4 or 5 minions that have taken damage from Wild Pyromancer is still only 4 or 5 health on your quest. So I think people are really underestimating the ability to achieve this quest. Like, yes, you can eventually do it. Like, Priest will get there at some point, but not in a deck that is meant to play fast. While you're trying to do all that, you're going to be using all of these resources, you're going to be making suboptimal plays, and you're just going to be left with a quest that didn't really get you anywhere while your opponent was just winning the game and doing stuff that they wanted to do anyway. Not to mention that passing up a turn 1 is a risk for a tempo deck. Now, notably, you can just not play this quest on turn 1, play something else, and then play this on like turn 3 or 4 when you make your big heal move. But even in that scenario, it's still a mana you got to spend, and it's still a mulligan in an aggro deck or a tempo deck, which is a really tough thing to give up, because in most cases you want to make sure you hit as a consistent early game curve as possible. So there is still some opportunity cost. So all of that said, I do not really think this works great as a faster, Reborn tempo enabler. There are some cards that support it pretty nicely. I can think about things like Injured Blade Master. We talked about Damaged Stegatron. You could even use like Ornn Retirehorn for your face damage and try to get there, but then you're running just lower quality cards on average. I don't know if the payoff's worth it. And then I hear people saying things like, well, you can heal your opponent's face and heal your opponent's minions. Well, yes, technically, I suppose you can, but that's not something you normally want to be doing. In general, what I'm saying is I think damaged minions hanging around on board is far less common than most people realize. Usually, people like killing things. The breakpoints that are important are full health or zero health. There's rarely a lot of stuff lingering around. In some cases, it happens, obviously. I'm not saying it won't ever happen. It's just not as consistent, I think, as people expect. Things typically die in Hearthstone, which means they're not going to get healed. So in a lot of cases, you're just going to be waiting and waiting and waiting. And even when you get this reward, I'm not even sure it's as crazy powerful as people think. Yes, a 3/3 buff is insane, but 3/3 stats for 2 is not like crazy. It's great, but it's not like game-shatteringly good, right? It doesn't snowball out of control, and you eventually could run out of minions too. Or if you're just behind on board, your opponent won't really care in the first place. So a lot of downsides bundled into achieving this quest, and even some in the realization of it. Now, that said, I will talk about the one case I think this card can work. I think if you just toss this into like a control deck, or maybe a deck that's like, a taunt resurrect deck that has a bunch of high health stuff, eventually you're just going to complete it. Like if you don't focus on it, your deck's not built or structured around it and therefore not making a lot of sacrifices. You're just kind of tossing it in, hoping to get there, maybe just off hero powers, but the occasional Divine Hymn could hit for 12 or something too if you have, damaged Witchwood Grizzlies or whatever it is. And in those scenarios, you just eventually finish the quest and you're happy because it was a passive little benefit that is definitely all upside. It's still better than your default hero power. So sure, I think in those worlds, this is a little bit playable and it's fine. It's good. I still don't think it's, meta defining or meta shaping. I think it's just a playable option. I don't think every deck would run it in that environment. Even like not every control deck might care about this enough. It might just not be worth the opportunity cost of your mulligan or that card slot in your deck. But for some, it could be. So I do think it retains a little bit of playability, just not nearly as much as most people think, and not nearly as across as many archetypes. It's a little bit more difficult to achieve, in my mind, than most people realize. Now that said, please go prove me wrong. I would love to be wrong. You'll have a lot of clips to make fun of me if I'm wrong, because I really went at this card on Twitch. So there's a lot of ammunition out there. If this ends up being a great card, please have at it. All right, that was it for the detailed discussion. Now let's jump into some quick reviews. Bazaar Burglary is a 4-star card. Activate the Obelisk is a 3-star card. There you go, folks. 2 cards. Pretty interesting stuff. Both a little bit playable, perhaps. One more than the other to me. Still wondering about quests in general, if they're going to be good enough. But I sure hope so. I mean, surely Blizzard won't design quests that just don't work. I have to put my faith and my hope in there. But tell me what you think. Are these going to see any kind of play? What decks will run them? Why are they good? Why are they bad? All that belongs in the comments below. But until then, thanks much for watching. And until next time, game on.